So, Vishnu has just got himself a job at a tea stall at the local movie theater, and he's settling in. So, the man who ran the cinema's tea stall had just sacked the previous helper for his general clumsiness. Whenever he engaged a new boy, which was fairly often, he started him off with a warning: "I'll keep a record of every cup and saucer that you break, and every plate you break, and their cost will be deducted from your salary at the end of the month." Now, Vishnu was started at a fixed salary of 50 rupees a month. He would have to be very careful if he was going to receive any of it at all. Chitru, the other boy, one of the other boys, said, "In my first month, I broke 6 cups and 5 saucers, and my pay came to 3 rupees. So be careful, don't." Poor boys. Vishnu's job was to help prepare the tea and samosas, serve these refreshments to the public during intervals in the film, and later wash up the dishes. In addition to his salary, he was allowed to drink as much tea as he wanted or could hold in his stomach. But the sugar supply was kept to a minimum. Vishnu went to work immediately, and it was not long before he was well versed in his duties as the other 2 tea boys, Chitru and Bali. Chitru was an easygoing, lazy boy who always tried to place the brunt of his work on someone else's shoulders. But he was generous and lent Vishnu 5 rupees during the first week. Bali, beside being a tea boy, had the enviable job of being the poster boy. As the cinema was closed during the mornings, Bali would be busy either pushing the big poster board around Mussoorie or sticking posters on convenient walls. Posters are very useful, he claimed. They prevent the old walls from falling down. So the stickers will hold the walls up. Chitru had relatives in Mussoorie and slept at their house. But both Vishnu and Bali were on their own and had to sleep at the cinema. After the last show, the hall was locked up, so they could not settle down in the expensive seats as they would have liked. They had to sleep in the dirty mattress in the foyer, near the ticket office, where they were often at the mercy of icy Himalayan winds. Bali made things more comfortable by setting his poster board at an angle to the wall, which gave them a little alcove where they could sleep protected from the wind. As they had only 1 blanket each, they placed their blankets together and rolled themselves into a tight, warm ball. That was very clever of them. During shows, when Vishnu took the tea around, there was nearly always someone who would be rude and offensive. Once when he spilled some tea on a college student's shoes, he received a hard kick on the shin. He complained to the tea stall owner, but his employer said, "The customer is always right. You should have got out of the way in time." As he began to get used to this life, Vishnu found himself taking an interest in some of the regular customers. There was, for instance, the large gentleman with the soup strainer moustache who drank his tea from the saucer. As he drank, his lips worked like a suction pump, and the tea, after a brief agitation in the saucer, would disappear in a matter of seconds. Vishnu often wondered if there was something lurking in the forests of that gentleman's upper lip. something that would suddenly spring out and fall upon him. The boys took great pleasure in exchanging anecdotes about the peculiarities of some of the customers. Vishnu had never seen such bright painted women before. The girls in his village, including his sister Pooja, were good looking and often sturdy, but they did not use perfumes or makeup like these more prosperous women from the towns of the plains. Wearing expensive clothes and jewelry, they never gave Vishnu more than a brief bored glance. Other women were more inclined to notice him, favoring him with kind words and a small tip when he took away the cups and plates. He found he could make a few rupees a month in tips, and when he received his first month's pay, he was able to send some of it home. What a great thing! Chitru accompanied him to the post office and helped him to fill in the money order form. Vishnu had been to the village school, but he wasn't used to forms and official paperwork. Chitru, a town boy, knew all about them, even though he could just about read and write. Walking back to the cinema, Chitru said, "We can make more money at the limestone quarries." "All right, let us try them," said Vishnu. "Not now," said Chitru, who enjoyed the busy season in the hill station. After the monsoon. But there was still no monsoon, so to speak of. Just an occasional drizzle which did little to clear the air of the dust that blew up from the plains. Vishnu wondered how his mother and sister were faring at home. A wave of homesickness swept over him. The hill station, with all its glitter, was just a pretty gift box with nothing inside. One day in the cinema, Vishnu saw the old man who had been with him on the bus. He greeted him like a long-lost friend. At first, the old man did not recognize a boy. But when Vishnu asked him if he had recovered from his illness, the old man remembered and said, "Oh, so you are still in Mussoorie, boy? That's good. I thought you might have gone down to Delhi to make more money." He added that he was a little better and that he was undergoing a course of treatment at the hospital. Vishnu brought him a cup of tea and refused to take any money for it. It could be included in his own quota of free tea. When the show was over, the old man went his way and Vishnu did not see him again. In September, the town began to empty. The taps were running dry or giving out just a trickle of muddy water. A thick mist lay over the mountain for days on end, but there was no rain. When the mist cleared, an autumn wind came whispering through the devdars. At the end of the month, the manager of the picture palace gave everyone a week's notice, a week's pay, and announced that the cinema would be closed for the winter. So that was the end of that chapter. Wali said, "I am going to Delhi to find work. I will come back next summer." "What about you, Vishnu? Why don't you come with me? It's easier to find work in Delhi." "I am staying with Chitru," said Vishnu. "We may work at the quarries." "I like the big towns," said Bali. "I like shops and people and lots of noise. I'll never go back to my village. There is no money there, no fun." Bali made a bundle of his things and set out for the bus stand. Vishnu bought himself a pair of cheap shoes, for his old ones had fallen to pieces. With what was left of his money, he sent another money order home. Then he and Chitru set out for the limestone quarries, an 8-mile walk from Mussoorie. They knew they were nearing the quarries when they saw clouds of limestone dust hanging in the air. The dust hid the next mountain from view. When they did see the mountain, they found that the top of it was missing, blasted away by dynamite to enable the quarries to get at the rich strata of limestone rock below the surface. The skeletons of a few trees remained on the lower slopes. Almost everything else had gone. Grass, flowers, shrubs, birds, butterflies, grasshoppers, ladybirds, everything gone. A rock lizard popped his head out of a crevice to look at the intruders. Then, like some prehistoric survivor, it scuttled back to its underground shelter. I used to come here when I was small, announced Chitru cheerfully. Were the quarries here then? Oh no, my friends and I, we used to come for the strawberries. They grew all over the mountain. Wild strawberries, but very tasty. Where are they now? Asked Vishnu, looking around at the devastated hillside. All gone, said Chitru. Maybe there are some on the next mountain. Even as they approached the quarries, a blast shook the hillside. Chitru pulled Vishnu under an overhanging rock to avoid the shower of stones that pelted down on the road. As the dust enveloped them, Vishnu had a fit of coughing. When the air cleared a little, they saw the limestone dump ahead of them. Chitru, who was older and bigger than Vishnu, was immediately taken on as a laborer. But the quarry foreman took one look at Vishnu and said, "You are too small. You won't be able to break stones or lift those heavy rocks and load them into the trucks. Be off, boy, find something else to do." He was offered a job in the laborer's canteen, but he had had enough of making tea and washing dishes. He was about to turn round and walk back to Mussoorie when he felt a heavy hand descend on his shoulder. He looked up to find a grey-bearded, turbaned Sikh looking down at him in some amusement. "I need a cleaner boy for my truck," he said. "The work is easy, but the hours are long." Vishnu responded immediately to the man's gruff but jovial manner. "What will you pay?" he asked. 15 rupees a day, and you'll get food and a bed at the depot." "As long as I don't have to cook the food," said Vishnu. The truck driver laughed. "You might prefer to do so once you have tasted the depot food. Are you coming on my truck? Make up your mind." "I'm your man," said Vishnu, and waving goodbye to Chitru, he followed the Sikh to his truck. A horn blared, shattering the silence of the mountains, and the truck came round a bend in the road. A herd of goats scattered to left and right. The goatherds cursed as a cloud of dust enveloped them, and then the truck had left them behind and was rattling along the bumpy, unmetalled road to the quarries. At the wheel of the truck, stroking his grey moustache with hand, sat Pritam Singh. It was his own truck. He had never allowed anyone else to drive it. Every day he made 2 trips to the quarries, carrying truckloads of limestone back to the depot at the bottom of the hill. He was paid by the trip, and he was always anxious to get in 2 trips every day. Sitting beside him was Vishnu, his new cleaner. In less than a month, Vishnu had become an experienced hand at looking after trucks, riding in them, even sleeping in them. He got on well with Pritam, the grizzled 50-year-old Sikh, who boasted of 2 well-off sons, one a farmer in Punjab, the other a wine merchant in far-off London. He could have gone to live with either of them, but his sturdy independence kept him on the road in his battered old truck. Pritam pressed hard on his horn. Now there was no one on the road, neither beast nor man, but Pritam was fond of the sound of his horn, and he liked blowing it. He boasted that it was the loudest horn in northern India. although it struck terror into the hearts of all who heard it, for it was louder than the trumpeting of an elephant. It was music to Pritam's ears. Pritam treated Vishnu as an equal, and a friendly banter had grown between them during their many trips together. "One more year on this bone-breaking road," said Pritam, "and then I'll sell my truck and retire." "But who will buy such a shaky old truck? It will retire before you do." "Now don't be insulting, boy. She's only 20 years old. There are still a few years left in her." And as though to prove it, he blew the horn again. Its strident sound echoed and re-echoed down the mountain gorge. A pair of wildfowl burst from the bushes and fled to more silent regions. Pritam's thoughts went to his dinner. "Haven't had a good meal for days," he said. "Haven't had a good meal for weeks," said Vishnu, although in fact he looked much healthier than when he had worked at the cinema's tea stall. "Tonight I'll give you a dinner in a good hotel, tandoori chicken and rice pilaf." He sounded his horn again, as though to put a seal on his promise. Then he slowed down because the road had become narrow and precipitous, and trotting ahead of them was a train of mules. As the horn blared, one mule ran forward, while another ran backward, one went uphill, one went downhill. Soon there were mules all over the place. Pritam cursed the mules, and the mules' drivers cursed Pritam, but he had soon left them far behind. Along this range, all the hills were bare and dry. Most of the forest had long since disappeared. "Are your hills as bare as these?" asked Pritam. "No, we still have some trees," said Vishnu. "Nobody has started blasting the hills as yet. In front of our house there is a walnut tree which gives us 2 baskets of walnuts every year. And there is an apricot tree, but it was a bad year for fruit. There was no rain, and the stream is too far away." "It will rain soon," said Pritam. "I can smell rain. It is coming from the north. The winter will be early." "It will settle the dust, at least," said Vishnu. Dust was everywhere. The truck was full of it. The leaves of these shrubs and the few trees were thick with it. Vishnu could feel the dust under his eyelids and in his mouth, and as they approached the quarries, the dust increased. But it was a different kind of dust now, whiter, stinging the eyes and irritating the nostrils. They had been blasting all morning. "Let's wait here," said Pritam, bringing the truck to a halt. They sat in silence, staring through the windscreen at the scarred cliffs a little distance down the road. There was a sharp crack of explosives, and the hillsides blossomed outwards. Earth and rocks hurtled down the mountain. Vishnu watched in awe as shrubs and small trees were flung into the air. It always frightened him, not so much the sight of the rocks bursting asunder as the trees being flung aside and destroyed. He thought of the trees at home, the walnuts, the chestnuts, the pines, and wondered if one day they would also suffer the same fate, and whether the mountains would all become desert like this particular range. No trees, no grass, no bushes, no water, only the choking dust of mines and quarries. Next section of this chapter, Pritam pressed hard on his horn again to let the people at the site know that he was approaching. He parked outside a small shed where a contractor and foreman were sipping cups of tea. A short distance away, some laborers, Chitru among them, were hammering at chunks of rock, breaking them up into manageable pieces. A pile of stones stood ready for loading, while the rock that had just been blasted lay scattered about the hillside. Come and have a cup of tea, called out the contractor. I can't hang about all day, said Pritham. There is another trip to be made and the days are getting shorter. I don't want to be driving by night. But he sat down on a bench and ordered 2 cups of tea from the stall. The foreman strolled over to the group of labourers and told them to start loading. Vishnu let down the grid at the back of the truck. Then, to keep himself warm, he began helping Chitru and the men with the loading. Don't expect to be paid for helping, said Sharma, the contractor, for whom every rupee spent was a rupee of his profits. Don't worry, said Vishnu, I don't work for contractors, I work for friends. That's right, called out Pritham. Mind what you say to Vishnu, he is no one's servant. Sharma wasn't happy until there was no space left for a single stone. Then Vishnu had his cup of tea and 3 of the men climbed on the pile of stones in the open truck. All right, let's go, said Pritham. I want to finish early today. Vishnu and I are having a big dinner. Vishnu jumped in beside Pritham, banging the door shut. It never closed properly unless it was slammed really hard, but it opened at a touch. This truck is held together with sticking plaster, joked Pritham. He was in good spirits. He started the engine and blew his horn just as he passed the foreman and the contractor. They are deaf in one ear from the blasting, said Pritham. I'll make them deaf in the other ear. The labourers were singing as the truck swung around a sharp bend of the winding road. The door beside Vishnu rattled on its hinges. He was feeling quite dizzy. Not so too fast, he said. Oh, said Pritham, and since when did you become nervous about my driving? It's just today, said Vishnu uneasily. It's a feeling, that's all. You're getting old, Pritham, said Pritham. That's your trouble. I suppose so, said Vishnu. Pritham was feeling young and exhilarated. He drove faster. As they swung round a bend, Vishnu looked out of his window. All he saw was the sky above and the valley below. They were very near the edge, but it was usually like that on this narrow mountain road. After a few more hairpin bends, the road descended steeply into the valley. Just then, a stray mule ran into the middle of the road. Pritham swung the steering wheel over to the right to avoid the mule, but here the road turned sharply to the left. The truck went over the edge. As it tipped over, hanging for a few seconds on the edge of the cliff, the labourers leapt from the back of the truck. It pitched forward, and as it struck a rock outcrop, the loose door burst open and Vishnu was thrown out. The truck hurtled down forward, bouncing over the rocks, turning over on its side and rolling over twice before coming to rest against the trunk of a scraggly old oak tree. But for the tree, the truck would have plunged several hundred feet down to the bottom of the gorge. 2 of the labourers sat on the hillside, stunned and badly shaken. The third man had picked himself up and was running back to the quarry for help. Vishnu had landed in a bed of nettles. He was smarting all over, but he wasn't really hurt. The nettles had broken his fall. His first impulse was to get up and run back to the road. Then he realized that Pritham was still in the truck. Vishnu skidded down the steep slope, calling on Pritham, Uncle, are you all right? There was no answer. When Vishnu saw Pritham's arm and half his body jutting out of the open door of the truck, he feared the worst. It was a strange position, half in and half out. Vishnu was about to turn away and climb back up the hill when he noticed that Pritham had opened a bloodied and swollen eye. It looked straight up at Vishnu. "Are you alive?" whispered Vishnu, terrified. "What do you think?" muttered Pritham. He closed his eye again. When the contractor and his men arrived, it took them almost an hour to get Pritham Singh out of the wreckage of the truck, and another hour to get him to the hospital in the next big town. He had broken bones and fractured ribs and a dislocated shoulder, but the doctor said he was repairable, which was more than could be said for the truck. "So, the truck is finished," said Pritham, between groans when Vishnu came to him after a couple of days. "Now I'll let go home and live with my son. And what about you, boy? I can get you a job on a friend's truck." "No," said Vishnu, "I'll be going home soon." "And what will you do at home?" "I'll work on my land. It's better to grow things on the land than to blast things out of it." They were silent for some time. "There is something to be said for growing things," said Pritham. "But for that tree, the truck would have finished up at the foot of the mountain, and I won't be here, all bandaged up and talking to you. It was that tree that saved me. Remember that, boy?" "I'll remember, and I won't forget the dinner you promised me earlier either." It snowed during Vishnu's last night at the quarries. He slept on the floor with Chitru in a large shed meant for the laborers. The wind blew the snowflakes in at the entrance. It whistled down the deserted mountain pass. In the morning, Vishnu opened his eyes to a world of dazzling whiteness. The snow was piled high against the walls of the shed, and they had some difficulty getting out. Vishnu joined Chitru at the tea stall, drank a glass of hot sweet tea, and ate 2 stale buns. He said goodbye to Chitru and set out on the long march home. The road would be closed to traffic because of the heavy snow, and he would have to walk all the way. He trudged over the hills all day, stopping only at small villages to take refreshment. By nightfall he was still 10 miles from home, but he had fallen in with other travelers, and with them he took shelter at a small inn. They built a fire and crowded round it, and each man spoke of his home and fields, and all were of the opinion that the snow and rain had come just in time to save the winter crops. Someone sang, and another told a ghost story. Feeling at home already, Vishnu fell asleep listening to their tales. In the morning they parted and went their different ways. It was almost noon when Vishnu reached his village. The fields were covered with snow, and the mountain stream was in spate. As he climbed the terraced fields to his house, he heard the sound of barking, and his mother's big black mastiff came bounding towards him over the snow. The dog jumped on him and licked his arms, and then went bounding back to the house to tell the others. Pooja saw him from the courtyard and ran indoors shouting, "Vishnu has come, my brother has come." His mother ran out of the house calling, "Vishnu, Vishnu." Vishnu came walking through the fields, and he did not hurry. He did not run. He wanted to savor the moment of his return, with his mother and sister smiling, waiting for him in front of the house. There was no need to hurry now. He would be with them for a long time, and the manager of the picture palace would have to find someone else for the summer season. It was his home, and these were his fields. Even the snow was his. When the snow melted, he would clear the fields and nourish them and make them rich. He felt very big and very strong as he came striding over the land he loved. That's the end of that chapter and the story. So we'll continue with another time. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye-bye. Nice story.
I see.
Yeah, you have to stop it.